Hello students, myself SVS, welcome back to my channel. Today let us continue the lesson Deep Water by William Douglas. In the last class we discussed that William Douglas became unconscious and he was slowly drifting away towards death. Then let us see what happened afterwards. So please take page number 27, paragraph 4. Then next, I remember I was lying on my stomach beside the pool vomiting. When he gained his consciousness, he found himself that he was lying by the side of pool and he was vomiting. The chap that threw me in was saying, the boy who threw him into the pool was saying, but I was only fooling. I was just trying to fool. Someone said, the kid nearly died. That means somebody was scolding the boy. Then the voice said, the boy almost died. Be all right now. Let us carry him to the locker room. Okay, all right now. Let us carry him to the locker room. So William Douglas was taken to the locker room. Several hours later, I walked home. I was weak and trembling. Several hours, that means after spending several hours in the locker room, he walked to his home. And that time he was very weak and trembling. He was shivering. I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. I couldn't eat that night. You see that night was really miserable for him. He was crying when he went to his bed and he was so much weak also. He could not eat anything that night. For days a haunting fear was in my heart. And you see that for many days, he was haunted by the fear of water. The incident happened in the pool that haunted him. The slightest exertion upset me, making me wobbly in the knees and sick to my stomach. Even a small work, a slightest exertion means physical or mental effort, a small work that made him feel that his knees were unable to bear his weight. Wobbly means unsteady. He felt that his knees were unsteady and he was not able to do even a small work. And not only that, he was sick to his stomach. I never went back to the pool, and afterwards he never went back to the pool. I feared water. That fear of water was with him. Water was in his heart. I avoided it whenever I could. Whenever he could get the chance to go nearby the water, he avoided it. A few years later, after a few years, when he came to know the waters of the cascades that is a waterfall. When he came to know about a waterfall, cascades, I wanted to get into them. He had an ambition, a desire to get into the waterfalls. And whenever I did, whether I was wading the Tieton or bumping river or bathing in warm lake of the cold rocks, the terror that had seized me in the pool could come back. You see that whether he went for walking in the Tieton, then wading means walking through water. When he went to walk through the water in a Tieton river or bumping river, or when he went for bathing in a warm lake of the cold rocks, what happened? That fear came back. That means wherever he went, whichever the rivers may be, that fear came back to him. The terror that had seized me in the pool, the terror that caught him in the pool, seized him in the pool, would come back. It would take possession of me completely. And that fear could take possession of him, take control of him completely. That means he was completely controlled by that fear. My legs would become paralyzed. Soon his legs became paralyzed, unable to move. His legs could not move. Icy horror would grab my heart. Extreme horror that could hold or grasp his heart. This handicap stayed with me as the years rolled by. So William says that this handicap, this difficulty, this hindrance that stayed with him, that remained with him for many years. In canoes on main lakes, canoes means small boats. When he went to main lakes for boating in small boats and fishing for landlocked salmon, when he went for fishing salmon is kind of river, fish, salmon in fresh water. It's a freshwater fish. And when he went for fishing, salmon fish and many other fish like bass, this is another type of fish. And he went for fishing it in New Hampshire, trout, another type of fish. And he went to fish it in Deschutes and Metilius in Oregon. And fishing for salmon again in Colombia. That means he wanted to fish different types of fish like salmon, bass, trout, etc. in different rivers. What happened? Wherever I went, the haunting fear of the water followed me. Wherever he went, that haunting fear came back to him. It ruined my fishing trips, deprived me of the joy of canoeing, boating and swimming. It completely destroyed his boating trips, and it completely deprived him of or got rid of him from the pleasure of boating and swimming. That means he could not enjoy boating as well as swimming or fishing, that because of this great horror. I used every way I knew to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. So he tried to avoid this fear, overcome this fear, conquer this fear in every way, in every level. But what happened? Whenever he tried it, it came back to him. It held him very firmly. Finally, in the month of October, I decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. He decided to keep an instructor, get the help of an instructor and learn to swim. So I went to the pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. So he went to a pool, and there he started the training with the help of the instructor. 5 days a week and 1 hour every day, each day. The instructor put a belt around me. The instructor, what did he do? He put a belt around him. A rope was attached to the belt, and that went through a pulley. And the rope went through the pulley that ran on an overhead cable, He held on to the end of the rope. So the instructor, he held the end of the rope, and we went back and forth across the pool. Then he moved front as well as back, then back and front. This way he swam across the pool. So the instructor was holding the end of the rope in his hand so that William would not drown in water. He would be safe. On each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic seized me. So in each trip, he swam across the pool, a little bit of the panic seized him. The fear caught him. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope, I went under some of the old terror returned and my legs froze. And each time the instructor relaxed or released then the rope, he went inside the water or he drowned into the water. That time the terror came back again, and also his legs were frozen or became motionless. It was unable to move. It was the 3 months before the tension began to slack. And this way, after practicing 3 months, you see that the tension started to reduce. Then he taught me to put my face under water and exhale. The first phase got over. In the second phase, he was asked to put his face under the water and breathe out, exhale. And to raise my nose and inhale. Then he was trained to keep his nose up of the surface, over the surface, and inhale, breathing. I repeated the exercise hundreds of times. So William repeated this exercise hundreds of times. Bit by bit, I shed part of the panic, and gradually, bit by bit means slowly, gradually, he shed part of the panic. That means he gave up the fear, and he removed the fear from his heart. And that was seized him when his head went underwater. So always when his head went under the water, what was there? The panic, fear was there. But after practicing it for hundreds of times, that fear was removed. Next, he held me at the side of the pool. That was the third phase. And in the third phase, he was held at the side of the pool, and he was asked to kick with his legs. Then kick the water the water surface with his legs. For weeks I did just that. So for many weeks he practiced this. At first my legs refused to work. So in the beginning you see that his legs were not working. It refused to work or did not move. But they gradually relaxed, and finally I could command them. But slowly his legs were relaxed, and he was able to give command to his legs. He could move according to his command. Thus, piece by piece, he built a swimmer. And you see that in this way, face by face, the instructor, he created a swimmer in William Douglas. And when he had perfected each piece, when one by one, face by face, he perfected William Douglas, he put them together. He coordinated them all together, and an integrated whole, and a complete swimmer was made. Okay, in this way, he was made into a perfect swimmer, a complete swimmer. In April, he said, so their training started in the month of October. So in the month of April, he said, now you can swim. A man, now you can swim. Dive off and swim in the length of the pool. Crawl stroke, it's a style of swimming. And he asked him to, yes, swim across the pool and go for crawl stroke. I did. As he was instructed, he did it. The instructor was finished, and you see that his classes came to over now. But I was not finished. But you see that he was not finished. That means his fear was there again. He could not remove his fear completely. I still wondered if I could be terror-stricken when I was alone in the pool. That was his doubt. Until then, instructor was with him. Now there was a doubt with him that whether the fear would come back to him when he was alone in the pool. I tried it. So he decided to try for that. I swam the length up and down. He swam the length of the pool up and down. Tiny vestiges of the old terror would return. And that time he found that in a small form. Tiny means a very small size or very small signs of terror that came back to him. But now I could frown and say to that terror. But now he was able to frown. He was able to get angry, or he was able to show his angry expression to the terror and say, trying to scare me. You are trying to scare me, O terror? Well, here is to you. Look, and off I could go for another length of the pool. Yeah, don't try to terror me. Now I can go for another trip. Okay, I can swim in the length of the pool. This went on until July. This practiced. He had practiced this way alone until July. But I was still not satisfied, and I was not sure that all the terror had left. Even then he was not satisfied. The doubt was there whether all his terror had left from him. So he went to Wentworth in New Hampshire. He went to, Wentworth in New Hampshire, and dived off a dock at Triggs Island. And there he dived into it from, the Triggs Island, and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamback Island. From there, he swam 2 miles across the lake and reached the Stamback Island. I swam the crawl, breaststroke, side stroke and backstroke. These are different styles of swimming. He tried all these styles. Only once did the terror return. But only one time that terror came to him, when I was in the middle of the lake. When did it happen? When he was in the middle of the lake, that terror came to him. I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. When he put his face under the water, he saw nothing except bottomless water. The old sensation returned in miniature. The old sensation, that old feeling that came back to him in a small level. Miniature means in small size. I laughed and said immediately, he laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me? Hey, what do you think you can do to me, Mr. Terror?" It fled. When he said it, that ran away, that moved away from there, and he swam on. Yet I had residual doubts. Even then, he had some doubts left over him. Residual, them doubts remained left over. At my first opportunity, when he got his first opportunity, what did he do? He hurried west. That means he went to the western direction, went up the Titan to Conrad Meadows. He reached where in the Conrad Meadows, that are the pastures. Then walked up the Conrad Creek Trail to Maid Glacier. Then he walked up to where the Maid Glacier, and camped in the high meadow. There he camped in the high meadow in the morning, it was in the side of a warm lake. The next morning I stripped. He removed all his clothes and wore the swimming costume in the next morning and dived into the lake. There he dived into the lake and swam across to the other shore and back. Then he swam across to the other shore, and from there he swam back. It was just like a Doug Corpen used to do. Doug Corpen is a famous American swimmer. As what Doug Corpen has done, the same way, he swam across the lake, and from there he returned back. I shouted with joy. Then he understood that there is no fear. So he shouted with joy, and Gilbert Peak returned the echo. And you see that his voice was resounded by Gilbert Peak. I had conquered my fear of water. He shouted loudly. He was very happy, and at last he understood that he had conquered the fear of water. The experience had a deep meaning for me. So the writer says that this experience had a great importance in his life, as only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. He says that only who had undergone such a great tear or terror and overcame that terror could appreciate him or could understand what it is. In death there is peace. So he says that death means there is peace. In death always what is there? The peace is there. There is terror only in the fear of death. When we are frightened of death, what comes? The fear comes. The fear is there when we are in fear of death. As Roosevelt, the American president, knew when he said, all we have to fear is fear itself. So American President Roosevelt once said, all we have to fear is fear itself. Because I had experienced both the sensation. So he says that he had experienced both the sensation. Which are these two sensations? Both the sensations, both the feelings. One is dying, and the terror, that fear of it can produce. And you see that the fear of death and how much fear it can produce. The will to live somehow grew in intensity, and his desire to live grew immensely in him. At last, that means he experienced the death and fear of death both. Okay, and he had a great desire to live also. At last I felt released. At last he felt released. He was relaxed, free to walk the trails. Trails means path, the tracks, and climb the peaks and to brush aside fear. Brush aside means throw aside, or we can say set aside. So he felt released from fear and was free to climb up the mountains, walk the mountains path, and he was able to move through the path of the mountains and climb up the mountains fearlessly. And he was able to climb up the mountains fearlessly now. Dear students, I hope all of you understood this lesson very well. Please like and subscribe my channel. Thank you very much.